I said nothing when others tried to decide our wedding. I never thought the hardest part of planning a wedding would come from people who weren't getting married at all. My partner and I had been together for several years. We met through mutual friends, grew close naturally, and at some point decided we wanted a life together. She is kind, emotionally open, and deeply loyal to the people she loves. That loyalty is one of the things I admire most about her. She's had a small circle of friends since childhood. They've always been protective of her, especially because her past relationships weren't easy. I understood that, and I never expected instant acceptance. But over time, their protectiveness began to feel less like concern and more like control. Early on, they would insert themselves into moments that should have been private. They interrupted dates, redirected plans, and reminded me, subtly, that I was still an outsider. At first, I told myself it would pass. I thought maybe I was overthinking it. It didn't. Eventually, I talked to my partner about it. She hadn't noticed how often it happened until she started paying closer attention. When she did, she confronted them. They apologized to her, not to me. Things seemed better after that, or at least I thought they were. As we started planning our wedding, the differences became harder to ignore. In my family, elders welcome a new spouse with traditional jewelry. It's symbolic, often old-fashioned, and never meant for daily wear. My partner knew this. She never objected. We also had a registry filled with things she genuinely wanted, and many guests had already chosen from it. Then, one afternoon, while she was out, her friends came to our home. They told me I was being selfish, that I was hiding behind tradition to force her into accepting things she didn't want. They accused me of being controlling, of repeating patterns from her past. I listened, and when I spoke, I kept my voice calm. I told them that family gifts were not their decision to make, that my partner was capable of speaking for herself. That was the moment I realized something. They weren't protecting her feelings, they were assuming them. The next story is different, but the feeling is the same.
She called it concern. I called it crossing the line. I used to think my future mother-in-law was just involved. The kind of parent who liked to know details, who asked questions because she cared. At least, that's what my fiancé told me. We'd been together for 4 years when he proposed. By then, I already knew his mother was a constant presence in his life. She called him daily, sometimes more than once. He always answered. At first, I didn't mind. I came from a family where everyone mostly kept to themselves. Their closeness felt unfamiliar but not threatening. That changed the moment we started planning our wedding. It started small. She asked where we were thinking of getting married. Then she suggested a venue closer to her home. Then she sent links. Then she called vendors just to ask questions. I found out because one of them emailed me to confirm changes I hadn't agreed to. When I brought it up to my fiancé, he looked uncomfortable, but not surprised. He said she probably thought she was helping, that she'd always been like this. I let it go. Then she started correcting me. If I mentioned a color scheme, she'd say it was too dark. If I talked about the guest list, she'd remind me who should be invited. If I mentioned traditions from my family, she'd smile and say, "Well, that's not how we do things." I noticed something else too. She never said these things when my fiancé was in the room, only when it was just us. When I told him, he hesitated, not because he didn't believe me, but because he didn't know how to confront her. "She means well," he kept saying. "She just worries." The breaking point came one afternoon when I got a message from her. Not asking, telling. She'd booked an appointment with a dress shop because she didn't trust me to choose something appropriate. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't about concern, it was about control. I told my fiancé I needed him to handle it. Not later, not gently, now. He was quiet for a long time. Then he admitted something I hadn't fully understood before. Growing up, disagreeing with his mother never ended well. She cried, she yelled, she reminded him of everything she'd sacrificed. Standing up to her always came with consequences. But this time, he did it anyway. The call didn't go well. She accused me of changing him, of manipulating him, of taking him away from his family. She said she was only trying to protect him from making a mistake. He told her calmly that we were adults, and the wedding was not her decision. She hung up. For weeks, she didn't speak to either of us. Then she started texting him again, not about us, but about missing her son. I stayed out of it. I didn't push him to fix things. I didn't ask him to choose sides. I watched. Eventually, she asked if she could come over to talk things through. We agreed, together, on one condition. We would speak as a couple. She arrived with a list of things she didn't like, of fears she had, of reasons she believed she should be involved. My fiancé listened quietly. Then he said something I'd never heard him say before. I love you, but this is my life, and this is our wedding. She cried. She said she felt pushed out. She said she was afraid of losing him. He didn't back down. After that day, things changed. Not dramatically, not perfectly. She still struggles with boundaries, but she no longer pretends the decisions are hers. And I learned something too. Sometimes people call control concern because it sounds kinder, but kindness doesn't ignore consent, and love doesn't require silence. The last story. It's about what happens after you stop fighting.
I never expected money to become the thing that finally exposed everything we'd been avoiding for years. When I married Claire, I knew I wasn't just marrying her. I was stepping into a family that already existed long before me. Her daughter, Lily, was 9 at the time. Bright, sharp, and polite in the way kids are when they're unsure where they belong. Her biological father, Mark, was still very present, not consistently involved, but always hovering. He never missed a chance to remind everyone, especially Lily, that he was her real parent. I tried not to compete with that. I told myself it wasn't my role. Over the years, I showed up in the ways I could. School pickups, late-night homework questions, sitting in the audience for dance recitals, even when Lily never looked in my direction afterward. She wasn't cruel, just distant, like she had learned early on that closeness came with consequences. Claire and I later had 2 children together. A loud, messy household grew around us. Lily lived with us part-time, split between our home and her father's. She never bonded with her half-siblings, but she tolerated them. That was the best we ever got. Still, we tried to be fair. When our youngest was born, Claire and I opened savings accounts for all 3 kids. Nothing extravagant, just something steady. Claire handled Lily's account on her own. I contributed to the younger 2. It wasn't discussed much. It didn't need to be. Until Lily turned 17. That was when the questions started. She came home one evening quieter than usual. Didn't eat dinner, didn't look at anyone. Later that night, Claire told me Lily had asked about money, about college, about what we were planning for her. Claire answered honestly, and that honesty detonated something we didn't even know was armed. Lily went back to her father's house that weekend. When she returned, she was furious, accused me of never seeing her as family, said I'd been pretending all these years, that the money proved it. I didn't argue, I didn't defend myself, I just listened. Later, Claire asked if we should move money around, take a little from the younger kids' accounts, even it out. She said she'd repay it over time. I told her I needed to think. The truth was harder to say out loud. Lily didn't want a relationship with me. She wanted validation from her father, and he was using money to get it. When we finally sat down together, Lily refused to speak to me directly. She talked to her mother like I wasn't in the room. She said her dad told her things, that I was trying to replace him, that therapy was a trap, that once she left for college, we wouldn't matter anyway. I asked one question. If I help pay, will anything change? She didn't hesitate. No. She said she planned to leave, cut contact, and maybe talk to her mother again someday, if she felt ready. That was the moment I understood something clearly for the first time. This wasn't about money, it was about control. I told Claire I wouldn't be contributing, not out of spite, not punishment, but because money doesn't heal wounds it didn't cause, and it shouldn't be used to buy peace that never lasts. Claire made her own decision. She kept saving. She decided the funds would go directly to Lily's school someday, not into anyone's hands. When Lily found out, she didn't yell. She went silent. A few weeks later, her dad called, accused us of manipulation, of cruelty, of sabotaging Lily's future. Claire didn't raise her voice. She told him the truth, that the money was hers, that Lily was loved, and that boundaries were not abandonment. After that, Lily stopped coming over. It hurt more than I expected, but for the first time in years, our house was calm. And I realized something else. Choosing peace doesn't always look kind. Sometimes it looks quiet. Sometimes it means stepping back. And sometimes it means accepting that love isn't always enough to fix what someone else keeps breaking.